Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, friends. So if you have responded why to any one or more of these questions, then you are at the right place at the right time, because today we are going to discuss a very interesting scarf model developed by Dr. David Rock, which talks about how we get triggered, how our brain works, how we motivate, how we get motivated, how we influence other people. It's a very simple yet very powerful model, which I have completely fallen in love with since the time I have come to know about it. So that's what we're going to talk about. The session today is based on the inputs I have received from these books. And what I'm going to be sharing with you is my interpretation of what Dr. David Rock or Meng or Daniel Goleman says. So if it is at any point of time different from what the you have read the book and found different in the book, then it is up to you to go back to a version that works for you. What I am sharing is my understanding of the what the authors say. And keeping in view the best practices in learning, 10% of the learning happens by attending the session, 20% happens when you discuss. So please be interactive. The session today is simple in concept, but very powerful when it comes to application. So if you find this has happened with you or someone you know in your personal life or at your workplace, feel free to bring in those experiences, because that will enrich everybody. And 70% learning happens when you apply. So please be prepared. Feel the session is being recorded and the recording will be shared, but feel free to take notes or snapshots of the screen. Before we dive into the SCARF model, I would like to share about this cognitive bias that we have, which is referred to as loss aversion. And what it says is that our brain responds twice as powerfully to any threat compared to any reward. So if there is for example, if there is a threat of job loss, then an employee will work far more than he will or she will work to earn the incentive. So when it comes to carrot and stick policy for managing employees, it is the stick which works far more than the carrot. That is what we need to understand. And this will become, also important as we look at the S in the scarf, which is the status. So moving on, I'm going to talk about status, which is the S in the scarf. And this has been developed keeping in view deep research that Dr. David Rock has done in the area of neuroscience, and it is steeped into the history of evolution of mankind. We have a very old brain in a new body. We may be 30, 50, 70 years old, but our brain is millions of years old. So it is wired to respond to the situations in the same way as it would do when we were living in the jungles and where our survival was at risk or threat on a day-to-day basis. So the status, which is the first one in the scarf, is about our relative importance, our how senior we are, etc. And people go to great lengths to prevent the status or to protect the status. So anything they will do with, so almost all our actions are driven by a desire to increase our status and prevent a loss to our status. And Dr. David Rock says that our brain is constantly monitoring our status in a group. So if we are in a group of 10, 20, or 100 people, our brain has already assigned numbers to everybody. This is number one, this is number two, and so on and so forth. So this is rooted very deeply into our psyche of comparing ourselves with other people, and any raise or rise in the status is taken as an award, and any fall in the status is taken as a threat. So much so that this is considered to be an existential threat. So mind interprets a loss of status as in the same way as it would get threatened if we were in front of a wild animal or so. So if I am in a jungle and a lion, is in front of me, I have my survival which is at stake. So any loss in status is considered in the same way as a survival issue. Now let us understand this by way of some examples that happen in our current life. Recently, there was a lot of coverage about the interaction between Sanjeev Goenka and KL Rahul. Okay. Now, if that was a conversation Sanjeev Goenka had with KL Rahul in private, there would have been no issue. But it happened in public. And who lost status? Please unmute yourself and speak, or type in the chat who lost status in this case. So the issue is not that Sanjeev Goenka shouted or spoke angrily to KL Rahul. The issue is it leads to a loss of status. That is why it becomes so important. When it comes to our family, if your say child or daughter or son gets angry with you and shouts at you, that is one thing. But if your son shouts at you in front of 10 other relatives or guests who are there, then it threatens our status. And how we would deal with that is very different. So if your son is shouting at you, there's nobody at home, you would deal with it very differently. And if the son is shouting at you or getting angry with you when there are 10 guests at home, you would deal with it very differently. Probably you will slap him or something like that, right? So that because we feel our status has been threatened. Anybody would like to share anything? There are many more ways that status gets threatened. And look at the way we go about our lives, wanting a bigger designations, bigger house, more money, increments. Everything denotes bigger status. Say if I have not got promoted, that is okay if everybody else is not promoted, because then everybody's status remains the same. But if I have not been promoted, other people have been promoted, then it becomes a challenge because my status has come down. Or if everybody has been promoted, sometimes it happens there is a cluster promotion, everybody gets promoted, then also it's not a motivation because everybody's status still remains the same. So increase in status or decrease in status is very, very important. One instance that comes to my mind is about a cabin. So in one of the organizations that I used to work with, the chief operating officer there used to have a cabin. But when the company moved to a new office, the CEO decided to do away with the cabins. And in the new office, this everybody was sitting in open. Chief operating officer was also sitting in the open. And he found that very, very disturbing. And, he just couldn't align himself to the new reality, because in the cabin, he was used to calling people and ordering them and, shouting at them and whatever, which is very difficult to do now in the open. So he felt very threatened and, with these change of things. So I'll pause here to see if you have any questions or comments about status, anything that resonates with you. Then we will move further to the next one, which is the C in the scarf. It could, it's a very powerful way to learn how to manage your employees also. Like once when I was working in insurance and I was about to quit the company, they promoted me, and from a regional manager, they made me a senior regional manager. No change in anything else except for the designation. So suddenly I feel very good about myself because I am a senior regional manager compared to my peers who are still regional manager. No increase in emoluments, nothing else, no increase in responsibility, but just increase in designation. So sometimes, the organizations play like that. Another way you see this being done these days is, in terms of designation of managing director. Earlier, there used to be one managing director in a company. Now you have every business head gets designated as a managing director in some. So that is another way your status is being enhanced. Then, like similarly, director. Earlier when you would say that I am a director, it would mean that you are a board of director in a company. But today, anybody could be named as a designated as a director in a company. So this is a way how status is being managed in the corporate workplace. Yes, Nilofer, Dr. Nilofer.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share an incident where there was this one gentleman. He had given up his job in one place, and then he reached out to me to help him find another job. And so I spoke to my brother-in-law, who was the VP of one of the big companies. Now it so happened that I believe on the first day, this gentleman, when he joined, he was given a table next to a dustbin, and he felt so upset about that even though he didn't have a job, he just put in his resignation. So I'm guessing that fits into this, he felt probably downgraded or whatever.
Yeah, so that's a very good example, Dr. Nilofer. We need to be very careful, when it comes to managing our employees and when it comes to managing ourselves also. So probably if that employee could have managed his thoughts, he could have stayed on in the job, because somebody will have a table next to. I have a dustbin next to my table, but that does not mean anything to my status. So when we delink our thoughts in that way, we can detach ourselves and observe ourselves. And I'll just give you another example in this a similar kind of context, that one of the people I know. Uh, he is a very bright person, and he, for a period of time, he was constantly getting bypassed for promotion. And all his colleagues, all his peers became his got promoted and became senior, but he stayed in that same position. And it happened for a period of 7 years he was in the same position. But eventually, he stayed on. He stayed on, and he then eventually went on to become a global managing director in that organization. So imagine, normally, when our colleagues get promoted, we don't get promoted. Our immediate reaction is to resign and move on. But this person saw his status not in terms of his designation, but in terms of his internal worth, and he continued doing what he was doing, and eventually he became the global managing director. So it's this understanding of how status works in our minds in relation to other people is also very important. Yes, Anjana.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned just now, it's more personal, Ashish. Most people don't look at it that way. Your egos get dented when, visually you don't have that upper hand. And if you're looking at a lot of the salespeople, the status is what gets the doors to open very fast. So somewhere like internally, you may not, I mean, within the company, you may not really um, be, that particular about what the status is, but it just eases your job. And, that's one of the reasons why if you look at most of the MNCs, it started with the MNC banks. The titles were very fancy even for juniors.
VP, everybody in Citibank starts with, even you are a management trainee, for customer facing roles, you would be AVP or VP.
So if, you look at a German company, the second most person from the MD or the chairman would be a general manager, GM, and then you have a manager and a senior manager. So the hierarchy, the tags that they give is very different to the tags that I would say the Americans came with.
Just on that note, so that these days I find the branch managers who manage a particular city are being redesignated as city CEO. So that is how it's being played up. The status goes up in the eyes of everybody because you're designated as a CEO. So that is how this works, and it's very important for us to understand also in terms of our personal relationships, between husband and wife, between in-laws, so it's not so much about who said whom to what, but once the in-laws get involved, then it becomes a question of status and so on and so forth. Or if somebody gets divorced, again, it's a question of not so much that you got divorced, but the status, social status that accompanies with that. Or typically, married people will have a higher social status compared to a single person. So there are many, many different ways this plays out in our lives. So it's very important for us to be aware about it in terms of our own context, in terms of the society that we are working in, and in terms of managing people, in terms of understanding why they are behaving in a particular way.